Savitri is divine becoming human. And this single fact alone makes Savitri a stand apart and stand alone in the entire galaxy of spiritual literature. Mostly we find in spiritual literature a description of what is beyond the divine in its transcendent aspect and the path to reach it, etc. etc. Only in the Gita, we are talking of the well-known ones, we find a luminous hint dropped into the inner ear of Arjuna and through him to the soul of humanity that I, the divine, the Purushottama, becomes human in crucial moments of Earth's evolutionary history. Savitri picks up that hint and elaborates it in a very beautiful way. It is essentially the story of the Divine Mother who becomes human for the sake of leading humanity. And Satyavan is among the rare, privileged, chosen one. And what happens to this chosen one in life? That is what we are being told. This chosen one has been outcast from his kingdom. His father has lost his sight. He has lost his outer wealth. It is as if all this is a necessary preparation for Satyavan to become ready to receive Savitri. That's how the chosen ones are prepared. And Satyavan has gone through it quite well. He passes the test that the school of nature puts before the human soul. And only when we have navigated through it without breaking down, growing from strength to strength through everything, then we become ready to receive the divine in our life. Satyavan is thus prepared. And he is revealing about himself, about his what he is at present. And so beautifully we read that he is at another place in Savitri. He has been called as the Veda knower. But Satyavan has not read the Vedas. But he is a Veda knower because he has read the Veda that is inscribed in wood and stone and leaves and sun and everywhere on earth. So he is a Veda knower. We all see these things every day, but Satyavan has seen it with a different eye, with a different consciousness, with a different aspiration, with a different seeking. And therefore, he has heard the whisperings of a greater truth through everyday objects. This is the beauty of Satyavan. As Narada says, he is a jewel upon earth. And Savitri comes to it in a chosen moment and he begins to describe himself. Now, it's interesting that Satyavan has not only learned from the vital creation, that is the animal, the plants, he has also learned something like a deep secret from human beings. That's what we read last time. Normally, people, when they relate with others, they start thinking of how does it benefit me, how does it profit me, how is it going to help me. All these calculations and ego-based needs and desires spring up. With life, even with plants, people think like this. With animals, they keep a dog so that he can safeguard the house. They go to a tree because it will give fruits. Nobody thinks of actually watering the tree or speaking to the tree. And with human beings, how is this person going to help me? But Satyavan has followed a different course altogether. So when he meets human beings, he sees in them portions of his adjunct selves. It's a great truth Sri Aurobindo is revealing, that every person who comes into a life is an aspect of ourself, but an aspect with which very often we are not aware. So the coming of this person brings out this aspect. Some people bring out our inner beauty. And we suddenly become aware, like many times children. They bring out the inner beauty in a human being who may have been very selfish. Till there is a child, then people learn to sacrifice. It's there. Human beings can sacrifice. But normally they do not. It's only when they have a child that they learn that yes, we need to sacrifice, and they do it lovingly, spontaneously, joyously. So relationships bring out. Some bring out within us anger, fear, despair, and we blame the person. But it's not the person. They were there within us, and this contact has brought it out. Now we have to work upon it. It's a part of our nature, our being was hidden in the depths of darkness and is come out. So Satyavan has looked at life in this way, and therefore he becomes a Veda knower. He has heard the unwritten word because he has gone through life very consciously. This is the impression that comes, that though he is living in the forest, he is very conscious. He is conscious of the breeze, conscious of the sun, conscious of the earth, and everything carries for him a message. So when he thus reveals all this to Savitri and says that through all this study, he has studied in the free progress system, I have discovered the one self. But there is something I don't know still. I have discovered it in my inner being and in the inner being of the world. I know that behind all this creation there is a presence. True, I cannot catch it fully. It is still something tangibly intangible. It is just palpable, but I cannot grasp the world mother's feet. I can feel that it's not just objects and plants and trees, but the world mother who has assumed these shapes. But where is she hidden? How to find her? Second, he says, in my inner being I know, but when I come back to the body, to this gross outer physical, I don't know how to fill this presence into this very being. And then that wonderful word, that now you have come and all will surely change. This conviction of victory. At one place, Mother says, conviction of victory gives you endless patience, tremendous patience and courage. That's why she says never one should vacillate in this doubt. Satyavan, from that moment, his fate is sealed because he believes her coming will lead to victory and therefore the victory will come. But Savitri, she wants to know not only about his present and his inner state, but also his past. She knows it, and yet look at the play, the divine becoming human. So these words are so interesting. And Savitri, musing still, replied to him, speak more to me, speak more, O Satyavan, speak of thyself and all thou art within. I would know thee as if we had ever lived together in the chamber of our souls. I am not yet satisfied. I want to know all of thee, all of thy being, as if we have been intimate for ages. That is how I want to know thee, understand you, not just an outer description. Speak till a light shall come into my heart, and my moved mortal mind shall understand what all the deathless being in me feels. What a beautiful, again, so many hints and suggestions. When Champak Lalji came to Sri Aurobindo, he spoke and Sri Aurobindo would ask him more questions. Okay, where are you? Who all are there? Who all are practicing the yoga with you? So he told all about Dikshit Bhai and Poonam Chandji and everybody. How many members are there? At one point, Champak Lalji says, but you know everything. And then Sri Aurobindo whispers under his breath, yes, I know everything. Much later one would understand why, in spite of the divine knowing everything, we have to speak. Because it creates a contact, a bridge. And that bridge helps from both sides. So here, that in my deathless being, I feel. But I also want the mortal mind to know. It also gives us a hint. As we see, Savitri contains infinite suggestions. What is the way to know about a person, about anything for that matter? We normally get information. So we have all these matrimony.com. Or old time that parents went around searching for a person. And you know, what is the data there? 5-figure, 6-figure salary and good looks. And you know, anybody can feign good looks. And in any case, these good looks will last only for a short while. And salary and NRI and all that stuff. But look at how Savitri is getting to know who is the right person for him, for her. She feels, she is very attentive to her feelings. That's why she's not saying a word. She's just feeling inside her heart. So she knows first through her feelings. And then she wants, through the mind, silently, she is entering into contact with his consciousness. By letting him speak. She is gradually entering into contact with his consciousness. Identifying with it as it were. So much so that through this bridge of words, she wants to reach into the depths of his soul and discover what is their soul relation. This is the true relation. But to do that, we have to go beyond the words. She's not analyzing words, say, okay, so how did you know this? What lesson? Nothing. She's just letting him speak and going deep through the bridge of words. That is how words can become a bridge. This is a simple practice actually. If we don't get caught up with the words and remain quiet and use the words as a means to go inside, then we can discover a lot of things. But we are all the time aggressively ready to answer or retort back. But Savitri obviously is showing us the way. Speak till a light shall come into my heart, and my moved mortal mind shall understand what all the deathless being in me feels. It knows that thou art he my spirit has sought. Amidst earth's thronging visages and forms, across the golden spaces of my life, I know somewhere that you are the one I have sought. This aspect Sri Aurobindo brings out even in so many places, and Mother, of course, in her writing, where in one of the, I mentioned it in the previous session this year, that how she wrote a story about Meotha waiting for a prince who will come. And she waiting. And how she will know? She will know by the feel. So when today's children actually are going by this method, they are refusing the old method that dad, you will find me a person, and mama, you will find me. They are actually coming closer to truth. They are learning to tune their inner being. They will make mistakes, maybe a couple of generations, but eventually they will discover the right path, which is not through the outer information. So now Satyavan has this to say. And Satyavan, like a replying harp. What a wonderful Jugalbandi. Satyavan, like a replying harp to the insistent calling of a flute. Savitri's voice is like a flute, enchanting him, drawing him closer, alluring him. And he is replying as if his whole being is a musical instrument. Answered her questioning and let stream to her his heart in many colored waves of speech. So speech, there is a speech from the mind, highly intellectualized speech, which builds a maze, weaves words and thoughts. But there is another speech. The sign of a pure intellectual speech is that it lacks a very important element, and that is joy. It may be very philosophical, very abstract, but it misses on this crucial element, which is joy. And it leads towards an abstraction. Whereas a speech that flows from the heart, it flows in waves and carries with it the sense of love, warmth, sweetness, joy. So here Satyavan is speaking from the heart. Sri Aurobindo says there is a way to think from the heart, to speak from the heart. And even that's a preferred way, because it's so close to the psychic that the truth expresses itself with clarity and force. So Satyavan is speaking from the heart, and through the speech, a consciousness is like wave flowing to her. What a deep occult truth Sri Aurobindo is describing so poetically, that when we speak, the words are nothing but vehicles of consciousness. Many times it's not the words that we have spoken, but the consciousness it carries. It can hit, hurt, harm, injure, and similarly, it can heal, succor, help, all this, uplift. So there is a speech which flows from the heart, and it's not the words, but the magic of the moment, the mood of the soul that it carries in waves, and it touches her heart. Oh, golden princess, perfect Savitri. In the very beginning, we have nowadays this aspect of proposal. This is something very new, but actually it is a very ancient thing. In between, there was nothing like proposal. Parents saw, chose, came and told you are getting married, and the person got married. And people took great pride in it. It was something so horrible. How could somebody else decide what you are going to do? And people felt a great pride. But now they see this, feel, they propose. How is, look, this proposal, what a way, a divine way. He starts by something so beautiful. Oh, golden princess, perfect Savitri. He has not even known anything about her. He just knows she is Princess of Madra. But Satyavan has felt in her the touch of perfection. More I would tell than failing words can speak, of all that thou hast meant to me, unknown, all that the lightning flash of love reveals in one great hour of the unveiling gods. At another place he says, love transforms a life. Magic is reborn. And Sri Aurobindo describes this magic of love as the human replica or earthly replica of the moment of creation, or the moment when soul merges into the divine. That experience, the closest imitation on earth, is the moment of love or the mood of love. And because it's such an intense moment, which is full of infinite hints, suggestions, burdened with a bliss, what happens is later on is because of the ego intervenes. That's a different story. But at that point of time, one is almost as if in close contact with one's soul. That moment has come to Satyavan, and he says something very beautiful as this lightning flash of love unveils things. He shares his heart. Even a brief nearness has reshaped my life. Savitri, few moments of your contact, and I feel so uplifted, so happy, so sweet, like a warmth, as if bright futures have opened before me. But practical minds will say, oh, dangerous, this boy has gone crazy, this girl is mad. This is an experience. And it's an experience which has its own validity. That moment of love is a true moment. Later on, many things will come, coverings will come, ego will come. But that moment, there is a truth in that. It's not that it was a false moment. So at that moment, Satyavan says, just a few moments and I feel so happy. This is one way to know. So I feel that for now I know that all I lived and was moved towards this moment of my heart's rebirth. A wonderful thing. Till now, I have loved this creation. But now I think, I feel that I am in love with the soul of creation. This is the experience, that all this was a preparation. Now you see, there is such another suggestion which comes with these couple of lines. Till now, for now I know that all I lived and was moved towards the moment of my heart's rebirth. So very often in life, we hold on to the past and forget that the past is a preparation for the future. This is a very beautiful aphorism of Sri Aurobindo. God drives us out of every Eden so that crossing a desert of morass, we may arrive at a greater paradise. We keep looking at the Eden that we have lost, or the desert and the wasteland that surrounds us. But the strong and those full of faith look towards the greater paradise. So Satyavan has been driven out of his kingdom by a strange fate. If somebody did not know about Savitri's coming and they came to know about Satyavan's life, they said, yes, God is so cruel. Look what he has done to this man. Such a good man, and what he is suffering. There are lectures and seminars on why good people suffer. Pure intellectual, missing the deep wisdom of an adverse fate. Shubindu in one line summarizes it. Wisdom of an adverse fate. Now imagine a scenario if Satyavan would not have been driven out. Would he have been a Veda knower? He would have been a good king. Lot of luxury, pomp. Maybe Savitri would have never come that way. How fate conspires. So it has driven him out because Satyavan has to be prepared for Savitri. So he has been thrown out of his kingdom. Father is outcast from kingdom and blind. So he has to take care of them. So he has grown up to be really a strong, wise person who, because nobody else has loved the vastness of creation and got this lesson of life. So Satyavan says, now I understand why all this happened to me. And he is valuing love. He's, somebody else will say, oh, now I got back a greater kingdom, some greater king has adopted me, therefore this happened. No. Look at the value he is giving to love. That this is far more precious. All my sufferings were nothing because thou hast come into my life. I look back on the meaning of myself, a soul made ready on earth's soil for thee. It's not easy to be prepared for meeting God, for living a life which is great. How Pandavas were prepared, how Draupadi was prepared, gone through so much suffering and pain, how Radha was prepared, how Sita was prepared. It's not easy. One has to go through a lot of tests, trials before, after. So Savitri also has to go through, Satyavan also has to go through this because he has to meet the world mother who comes to him not as a mother, but she comes to him in the human form asking for his hand. This is a very interesting thing which we'll talk about maybe a little later. Once were my days like days of other men. So now he's saying, what is the meaning of my past, how I look at it. Very often we don't see that events of past have reshaped us today. And if we value our present, we will thank the past, however bad it may have been. So very often there are people who sometimes come, they reach the ashram and they come and say that, how their life has been so difficult, so painful, and they start, complaining sometimes, why does God do this? Why has He done this to me? So, of course, at different moments you say different things in spontaneity. But once I remember asking someone who spoke all this, I said, but you see, all this has led you today to this place, to this ashram, to this samadhi. What do you feel about being here? Oh, this is wonderful. I said, and the past was wonderful because it has led you here. Imagine if the past was different. Maybe you would have been different. So, a past which leads you to this point. So now Satyavan is revealing how he looks at his past. Once were my days like days of other men. What were the days, his days? To think and act was all, to enjoy and breathe. This is the ordinary life, common life. Think and act, or more commonly, act and then think, or most commonly, act and do not think. These are the three ways we live. The most ordinary one is act, do not think. Then act, then think. Then Sattvic type who thinks and then acts. So Tamas, Rajasic and Sattvic. Tamasic people act, thought never comes. Rajasic people act, then they think. And Sattvic people think and then act. So he says, I have lived like that. This was the width and height of mortal hope. I could never imagine that there is anything beyond thinking and doing and earning a livelihood. Yet there came glimpses of a deeper self that lives behind life and makes her act its scene. A truth was felt that screened its shape from mind. A greatness working towards a hidden end. And vaguely through the forms of earth there looked something that life is not and yes must be. When Mother was asked that what are the signs of spiritual life, several places he has given several signs. One place he says something very interesting. Who is destined and chosen for this life? She says, everyone who is destined and chosen for this kind of life is given at least once, before one has reached adulthood, some passing glimpse, either like a flash or a sign or a glimpse. And in that moment, suddenly it comes like a hint and suggestion. Then the door closes. Then after a while, suddenly one remembers, oh, sometimes I used to feel like this. Or yes, once I had felt like this. 7 years of age, 10 years, 14 years, but a glimpse comes. So Satyavan says that even though I was leading life of an ordinary man, preparing for my postgraduate exams or graduate exams or whatever, preparing for a high school grade in a very good dreaming of cash and carry schemes, suddenly something would overtake me and a glimpse I would get. These are called soul moments. And very often life is counted by those moments. All the rest is trash. These are the moments when we truly live. Otherwise, we are like dead people habitually moving around. So he too gets a glimpse of a greatness, an ideal that life should be. I groped for the mystery with the lantern, thought. So interesting. Lantern, thought, showing the thought. What is it? Is there God? Is there not God? Is there something? Is there a meaning, purpose? Lantern, thought. So one is trying to find the sun with a lantern. Where is the sun? Where is the sun? When the sun comes, one doesn't even know where the lantern is gone. When the sun comes, one says, where is the lantern? Where is the lantern? Some people think that because whole night they have searched with the lantern, therefore the sun has come. The sun will come in its own hour. And then the lantern will be not necessary. But the only purpose it does it keeps us awake and searching. So the only purpose is that the thought keeps us awake and searching. So here he says that I have searched with the lantern thought. Its glimmerings lighted with the abstract word, a half visible ground and traveling yard by yard. It mapped a system of the self and God. So some people love to philosophize and intellectualize, weaving words to make God wear a dress. Usually it's a very crude dress. And they write big books, abstract books. And those who find Life Divine difficult, I often say, read some such book of abstract philosophy, and then you'll find Life Divine extremely simple and easy. It is very simple and easy to the seeking heart. It is very difficult only to the abstractionalizing mind. So he says that there is I did this. I could not live the truth it spoke and thought. Common problem. That's why, all these seminars and all these, actually they have no meaning. They are like bubbles arising. And everybody says lovely things. And these clappings. And after all this is gone, we go back to our same old life. So there is a nice little story of a man, of a, prince who was passing by, and he heard a saint giving a talk, addressing a group of people. Then that one thought he heard and it changed him. He renounced the kingdom and went away. This is rare. Most often we speak and we are very happy, but we are not able to live that truth. And this is the big problem. Because so long as it is only in the mind, it remains there. But when the heart and will are seized, then we want to live and walk the path. Otherwise, we only talk the path. So this is the difference. It is not that those who are walking the path do not speak. Yes, they can also speak. But the difference is, if only the mind is engaged, we only talk about it. But when the heart is seized and the will possessed, then we not only talk, but we walk. This is the difference. So Satyavan says, there was a time I only thought about it, but I could not live. I turned to seize its form in visible things, hoping to fix its rule by mortal mind. This is how the mind conceives and perceives God. It fixes. What does God look like? Oh, like this, like that. One wants to see God in a certain way, and poor God has to come in that way, because if he comes in some other way, it will be so difficult. So yesterday we had that lovely program, Where Should I Find You, Krishna? But Krishna is always portrayed with his flute on the tree. Yes, that is one way, but Krishna comes in countless ways. Sri Aurobindo reveals in the Upanishad, look yonder, old man passing, crouching with his stick. I am there. Look at this child smiling and running away. I am there. In the blush of a girl, in the strength of a man, in the beauty of woman, everywhere. Krishna himself says in the Gita, I am in all this. But how difficult to conceive that? So we fix him. No, you better be only this. Don't be something else. So our mind fixes. A form fixes. A name fixes. A limit fixes. A way that God must act. Imposed a narrow structure of world law upon the freedom of the infinite. Narrow structure of world law. God blesses only his devotees who go to his temple and bow down before him. So we have that story of poor Jim, who used to be there in the church, and one day he was very sad. He was told, you leave this church and go. There is a separate church for the blacks and you will go there. So he is full of sadness. When he's thrown out, finally he's sitting below the tree. Oh my God, why this has happened to me? I was so faithful going to church every day and I am thrown out. So suddenly Christ appears before him. Why are you so sad, my child? Lord, they have thrown me out of the church. I have worked there for 5 years, day and night. The Lord says, they threw me out 5 years before. Come, join company, let's walk together. We are in one boat now. We are on the same par equation. How do we know to whom he will come? How he will come? Mother says, I was an atheist till quite some time, in spite of having such tremendous experiences. Amazing. Why? Because she would not believe in the God of religions. That's why she told the clergy people on the boat when she's coming to Pondicherry. Because, everybody was going down for the prayer 10 o'clock. And mother did not go there. So, the clergy came up and said, why? You are an atheist, you don't believe? He says, well, it's not about that. If I tell you, you will not be able to take it. Then he said, no, you tell me. Then the Kali aspect came out. I don't believe in you and your people. You go there as if you are doing a favor to God. Half an hour you will go there. After that I have seen all the people walked out of the prayer. They went to play the cards. They went to the bar to drink, forgetting all about God. And where are you going? To convert people in India and China? Much before your civilization came into existence. They had known a path which could unite them with God. And you want to go there and teach them this hypocrisy? So this is the truth she was carrying in her heart. Somebody who saw outwardly would wonder, oh, she's not a very religious person. But she was so deeply spiritual, not just spiritual. She had those experiences. Even Sri Aurobindo says something very similar. So how much we can, and mother again, she cautions us. People who judge are doing stupid things, but they make it even more stupid when they say, mother does not like this, mother does not like that. And mother says, what do they know? Mother is free, she is infinite. What she will do at one moment and what she will not do at another moment, she is free. We should never try to analyze and understand. We should only say, mother, we don't know. Give us the wisdom. That's all. So here, Sri Aurobindo says, imposed a narrow structure of world law upon the freedom of the infinite. He did that bad karma, therefore he is suffering. Satyavan did bad karma or good karma? What a one! If you see outwardly, bad karma. If you see inwardly, wonderful karma. Therefore Savitri comes to him. So, how foolish we can be. A hard, firm skeleton of outward truth. A mental scheme of a mechanic power. Even karmic law is made so mechanical. that, if somebody loses money, one says, oh, you must have had to give him this much amount. Now imagine, it's a very complicated calculation. If you have lost 1,000 rupees, then what does it mean? In previous Janma, you may have given 10, 20, is it with interest, simple interest, compound interest, all these thoughts. And some people actually ask it like this. Well, it's not like that. It's not a mechanical thing. It is something very different, the law of karma. It always works towards evolution and good. This light showed more the darkness as unsearched. It made the original secrecy more occult. It could not analyze its cosmic veil or glimpse the wonder worker's hidden hand and trace the pattern of his magic plans. He says, all this I have read, Savitri. I have read Shankaracharya's Bhashya and all the modern tikas and gurus. But you know what? It has made my problem even worse. It has made more questionings into my mind. When I read about karmic law, I started wondering what kind of God who is punishing. Before I didn't have this thought, but after reading I had this question. When these books told me that nirvana is the goal, I started wondering, why did he make creation if nirvana is the goal? I had no issues before that. After reading, it has made me even worse. So he says that this light showed more darknesses. What are the unanswered questions? See, what preparation is needed for Sri Aurobindo's yoga. Because if we are satisfied with that usual stuff, mukti and karma and all that stale, old stuff, then there are so many paths. But if something beyond, I plunged into an inner seeing mind and knew the secret laws and sorceries that make the matter mind's bewildered slave. The mystery was not solved, but deepened more. So he says, I have practiced a little bit Tantra also. I have gone into the inner mind and I know I have got some siddhis, Savitri. I know how to, cure people of their diseases. I know pranic healing, I know Reiki, and I can, matter following the mental will. I have done all this. But you know what? It has again created more problem for me. I wonder, where does all this energy come from? What is the process? So it is making me even more think harder and deeper. I strove to find its hints through beauty and art. But form cannot unveil the indwelling power. Only it throws its symbols at our hearts. It evoked a mood of self, invoked a sign of all the brooding glory hidden in sense. It lived in the ray, but faced not to the sun. He says, I have gone to some lovely temples with beautiful murtis. I really admire them. For a moment, looking at those carvings in the temple, such beautiful paintings, I felt that there is something like a beautiful one, like a wonder. But I could not grasp. Ultimately, I again came back to that form, got stuck there. And then he says, I lived in the ray but faced not to the sun. Living in the ray is like sometimes when the day comes and rays come and they illumine fields. But we are not yet looking up to the source. So all this Tantra, Mantra, Veda, Vedanta, Upanishads, when we read all them, get experiences and glimpses, all these are living in the ray. It reveals things. But where is the source of that power? Where is the womb of all things? Where from creation has emerged and these worlds? That is the sun. So he says, I have not found that. I looked upon the world and missed the self. And he says, ultimately summarizes the problem. Savitri, you know what? If I get into work, I forget the divine. And when I found the self, I lost the world. Or if I start concentrating, I get clumsy, I can't do my work well, then there is a problem. This is a difficulty. My other selves I lost and the body of God. And when I withdraw too much inside to seek the self and find it, this whole creation is divine. I know it, but I lose it. I start feeling me, my experience, realization and all other self which are also thine. I miss out on them. So, what to do? This is the problem. The link of the finite with the infinite. And this body of God is the creation. This world is the body of God. This universe is the body of God. He says, I lost that. I forgot that. The bridge between the appearance and the truth. So we have this typical division in traditional Vedantic philosophy. I won't use the word Vedanta because Vedantic interpretations which have led to Vedantic philosophy, there we find it. Not in the original Vedanta. Original Vedanta is very much world affirming, life affirming, throwing a bridge between the self and this reality appearance. But in interpretation of Vedanta, in today's Vedantic philosophy, we say, oh, this is appearance, illusion, Maya. This is only for initial preparation, but that alone is reality. When you go there, this has no meaning. What for all this came into existence? Where is the bridge between the appearance and reality? How that has become this? I want to know that, the bridge. How that has become this? Or are these two totally separate and different? Forever, like two poles fronting each other like day and night. I want to know the bridge. The mystic aim for which the world was made. This is the royal road of entry into Sri Aurobindo's yoga. Not just that my experience, my realization, so I felt very wonderful. God is inside, self-realization. All this is good, but it is still the primary, secondary school stuff. Our seeking should be as vast as creation itself. Why this creation? How beautifully Queen raises these questions later, and Sri Aurobindo answers through Savitri later on. If in the meaningless voice creation rose, does it have a direction, a purpose, or is it only to escape? So this is his seeking. His seeking is not just for the self. He has found. That's what Sri Aurobindo says. This yoga begins where other yogas end. He knows the self. That is not his problem. He wants to bridge. I have found love of the divine. But how to bridge this divine love with the human love? Is human love meaningless and absurd, just a preparation for that? Or after finding this love, is it possible that at the human level I can relate with this world of human beings, plants, animals in a new way? Or is it meaningless? So he says the bridge between the appearance and the truth, the mystic aim for which the world was made, the human sense of immortality. What does it really mean? We want to build immortal things. We want knowledge to be immortal. But inevitably we find that what we believe to be true turns out to be untrue. We want bliss to be immortal. But every joy drags two sorrows at its feet. We want love to be immortal. But it fades after a beautiful hour has gone. We want beauty to be immortal. But it goes away with the aging of a face. So this human sense of immortality, how can these things that we experience on earth for a brief moment can become immortal? Can they be immortalized? So these are his seekings. But now the gold link comes to me with thy feet, and his gold sun has shone on me from thy face. He says, but now I believe that I can find. You are the bridge who will resolve this paradox for me. That's how you have come. So look at the beauty of his love and the surrender. For Satyavan, Savitri is not an object of position or for his pleasure. She is the world mother who has come to him as wisdom. He is seeing in her that wisdom which is going to fill his life with a new kind of knowledge. This is how the soul turns to God. And both levels we will find the meaning. As Satyavan and Savitri as human figures who love each other, the story of conjugal love. At the same time, the Satyavan as the soul aspiring for perfection, and Savitri as the world mother who comes to him. It's very interesting, this kind of a... and it's very... Sri Aurobindo puts it as if, it's a human love. And they are going to get married. It also applies to the soul and the divine. There is something called as a mystic marriage. between the soul that has turned to God and God's sanction to it. There are people, some people, at least one instance I know authentically, where the mother gave this person a ring of gold with a little diamond on that. And he didn't understand. He asked mother, what does it mean? Mother just uttered two words, mystic marriage. Mystic marriage. In Christianity, every nun is supposed to be married to Christ. And in our own tradition, married to Krishna. So this is a mystic marriage which is also taking place between Satyavan and Savitri. This marriage can take place within our being also. And we are meant for that. And all our life and experiences of the world are a preparation for that moment when we stand face to face with the Divine Mother. One small little story and then we close. Somebody asked T.V. Kapali Shastri, how Satyavan says, my whole life was a preparation for this moment. So he asked T.V. Kapali Shastri, you have done all kinds of sadhana. He had done Vedanta sadhana, he has written on Rig Veda Bhashya, almost did the work that should have been the wanted to do, but because of shortage of time he could not do. Siddhanjana, it's a beautiful treatise. Then he also had done Tantra sadhana. And of course we know that he came also from the lineage of Raman Maharishi. Mantra sadhana, he could see the mother as Tripur Sundari, and that famous last letter, who is the mother, is in response to Kapali Shastri's question to Sri Aurobindo. Now, somebody asked T.P. Kapali Shastri, you have done all these kinds of sadhanas. So, can you summarize in a gist what you got from these sadhana? Now, normally one would have answered why I got self-realization or I am a Jivan Mukta and all this. But T.V. Kapali Shastri's answer was simply amazing. He says, why? I came to the feet of the Divine Mother. All the punyas, all the sadhana, all the tapasya has brought me to the feet of the Divine Mother. What more does one want? So Satyavan says, now I see in your feet, look how beautifully. Now I see in your feet that all my issues will be resolved. So we'll stop here. Today there is only one session because there is early dinner. Tomorrow there will be 2 sessions. We'll continue.